All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're kinda on a mission. We're gonna crack the code of those super dense, sometimes confusing mining company reports. And you might be asking, why bother? Well, honestly, learning to read these things is what separates a really smart investment from, just a wild guess in the dark. So, you're looking at a mining stock, and here it is, the million-dollar question. Is this thing a genuine gold mine, or is it a money pit in disguise? Are you looking at a project that's about to hit it big, or one that's just quietly sinking? The stakes? Yeah, they're incredibly high. And believe it or not, the answer is usually right there. I mean, it's hidden in plain sight inside their reports. So in this explainer, we're going to become decoders. My goal here is to give you the tools you need to find those answers all by yourself. Okay, so the best way to think about one of these reports is like a puzzle, right? And what's the first step to solving any puzzle? You've got to understand how all the pieces are supposed to fit together. So let's kick things off with the basic structure. So picture the report having different chapters. First up, you've got the financial overview. That's the money story, plain and simple. Are they making any? Then there's production data, which is literally what they're pulling out of the ground. Reserves and resources, that tells you what they've got left in the tank for the future. Operational highlights, that's the real-world action behind all the numbers. And finally, you get the management discussion, which is, well, it's where they get to tell their side of the story. Just knowing where to look, that's half the battle right there. All right, now we get to the really fun part. Mining reports are just full of industry jargon. And look, it can feel super intimidating at first, but here's the secret. You only need to know a handful of crucial terms to get a huge advantage. So let's learn the lingo. Okay, so right away you're going to see terms like measured, indicated, and inferred resources. Now, this isn't just word salad. It's a direct measure of risk. Measured means the company is super confident about what's in the ground, and they've got solid data to back it up. But inferred? That's more like an educated guess. It's based on very early exploration. So if a company's entire value is built on inferred resources, you know right away that the investment risk is way, way higher. That distinction is absolutely critical. Another big one you'll see is grade. All this means is how much valuable stuff, gold, copper, whatever, is in each ton of rock they dig up. Now, a high grade sounds amazing, right? But here's the catch. It's totally meaningless if it costs more to get the metal out than what the metal is actually worth. The real secret sauce is weighing that grade against the cost to produce it. Okay, we've learned some of the language, so now it's time to follow the money. Think of the financial statements as the next set of clues in our little investigation here. Because trust me, this is where you find the real story of how a company is actually doing. So first up, revenue. What you want to see, obviously, is this number trending up. But if it drops, you got to ask why. Now, sometimes there's a perfectly good reason, like bad weather for a few weeks. But if the company is telling you production is up, but revenue is down, wait a minute. Something doesn't add up there. That's a huge red flag. You need to go and investigate. Next, let's talk profit margins. Look, mining is a crazy expensive business, so thin margins aren't always a deal breaker, especially if it's a newer company that's still growing. But are those margins consistently weak? Are they shrinking quarter after quarter? That could be a sign of some much deeper problems with their costs or just how efficient they are. And now for what I think might be the most important number of all, operating cash flow. This is the actual cash that the company is making from its day-to-day mining operations. We're not talking about money from financial gains, like taking on a new loan. Healthy, positive cash flow from operations, that is almost always a much better sign of a company's real strength than just looking at its net income. So we followed the money trail, but what's actually happening on the ground, at the mine itself? Now we get to connect those financial clues to the physical operation. It's time to go from dirt to data. The most basic thing to look at here is production volume. How much rock do they actually pull out of the ground? You really want to see a company that hits its production targets again and again. If they're constantly missing their goals or the numbers are just all over the place, you got to dig in and find out why. But just pulling rock out of the ground, that's only half the story. The next piece of the puzzle is the recovery rate. This tells you how much of that valuable metal they actually managed to separate from all that worthless rock. I mean, a massive production volume doesn't mean a thing if their recovery rate is awful, right? It just means their processing is super inefficient and their costs are probably through the roof. And these are the kinds of details you'll hunt for in the operational highlights section. Things like a temporary shutdown, a delay because of bad weather, rising energy costs. Any one of these can explain why the financial numbers look a little weak. But it also gives you incredible insight into how good the management team is at dealing with the real-world problems that always pop up. Okay, so far, we've pretty much been looking in the rearview mirror, analyzing what's already happened. Now, let's use the report to peer into the future. A really good report will leave you a trail of breadcrumbs about the company's potential for growth and where they're planning to go next. And here's a fantastic way to do that. Create a simple little scorecard for yourself, seriously. Instead of getting lost in these long, dense paragraphs, just boil it down. For example, is their exploration program active? Are they actually drilling? Okay, that's a high confidence signal. What about their project permits? Oh, those are still pending approval. That adds some uncertainty, so maybe that's medium confidence. And have they already locked in the funding for their next big expansion? Yep, another high confidence point. This simple little exercise helps you turn all their vague promises into your very own concrete risk assessment. And these are exactly the kinds of clues you're hunting for. Are they actively drilling new sites? Have they put out an announcement that some of those risky, inferred resources have been upgraded to more solid, measured resources? Are they actually making progress on building that new mine they talked about? You see, a company that has a genuinely strong future will be giving you consistent, transparent updates on all of these things. All right, let's bring it all home. What is the whole point of all this detective work? It's really simple. The ability to properly read and understand what's really being said in these reports, that is what gives you, the investor, a serious edge. Because at the end of the day, all those numbers, the figures, the grades, the production volumes, they aren't just dry data points on a page. They're basically characters and plot points in a much bigger story. A story about the company's health, its challenges, and its ambitions. And with the tools we've gone over today, you are now equipped to be the one who can actually read that story. You can connect the dots, you can spot the inconsistencies, and you can understand the real plot, not just the shiny, happy version you see in the press release headlines. So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to take with you. The very next time you open up a mining report, don't just glance at the summary. No, dig deeper. Ask yourself, what's the one critical clue hidden right here in plain sight that everybody else is probably missing? Because finding that one thing, that could make all the difference.